everyone, and welcome to Puzzle HR's 2025 Summer Symposium. We are so glad that you could join us today for this session. This is one of our favorites to run. It's one of the highest rated sessions that we do. This is our continuing topic of the multi-generational workplace. Before we get started, just a little bit of housekeeping, right? So pop your questions in the Q&A or in the chat, and we will try and answer as we go along. So without further ado, I am going to hand over the hosting reins and turn myself into a participant in this webinar and hand it over to the one and only Heidi Hernandez from the Puzzle HR Learning Team. Heidi, thank you so much for agreeing to herd this group of cats today. So happy to have you with us. Thanks.
Of course. Thank you, Chris. Well, listen, it's great to see everybody. As Chris said, I am Heidi. If I do my job well, I will fade into the background and let these guys come to the forefront. But our topic today is passion versus paycheck, kind of leading and working inside of the multi-generational workforce today, and really what drives purpose inside of work, what drives generations to have different motivators is kind of our key concept today. So we've got many generations on the call here in front of you. We've got Lonnie Ostrander. I'm not going to guess what your generation is, Lonnie. He's our Chief Executive Officer. You can answer that one yourself, Lonnie.
I'm barely a baby boomer, baby. Yeah, I'm a baby boomer.
Perfect. He's a baby boomer. Chris Timmel is our COO. Chris, what
Gen
are you?
X,
You're an
baby.
X. You and I are the X's on the call here. Alexa,
help me out when they come after me.
That's right. That's right. Alexa Ostrander is one of our directors of customer success. Alexa, what gen are you?
I'm a millennial.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We got it all.
Mm-hmm.
And then last but certainly not least, Simone Timmel.
Yep, I'm the resident Gen Z, just barely, but I make the cut.
Okay, nice. All right, so we've got a good group here in terms of all the generations that are, represented inside of today's workforce. 4 to 5 is usually kind of where most organizations park. But to get us started, let's talk personal perspective. Simone, I'm going to start with you on this one, and then you guys just chime in. What workplace values did you grow up seeing modeled? This is kind of a loaded question for you because somebody else happens to be sitting on the call that may or may not be related to you. I'm not sure, but just share in full transparency.
Yeah, I would say hard work, sometimes to the point of overwork. Especially from my own father. He is probably the hardest working person that I have ever met in my life. I mean, ever since starting Puzzle, it has been puzzle nonstop, and it is kind of terrifying. I will be so honest. It's so scary, but it's also really inspiring. I think a lot of Gen Zs are maybe a little scared of the level of dedication that some of the older generations show towards their jobs, but at the same time, it is really inspiring and very cool to see people who actually care.
Mm-hmm. So that put a level of pressure on you. Obviously, that's what I hear.
Definitely a level of pressure because I want to do my job and I want to do my job well.
Mm-hmm.
But I also don't want to burn myself out. I see how hard my dad works, and sometimes I would rather relax a little bit. And I don't think that's too bad of a thing.
I love that. I would echo the same. I think Simone and I have always had this awesome hybrid approach from how we were raised, right? Where I think we bring a lot of hard work and dedication that maybe would be more on the extreme of our generations. So very blessed to have had that with my values and what I saw modeled growing up and in the workplace. But I would echo that as well. Like hard work is really important. Making sure that your values can align, I think is just growing as a culture in the US, right? That you really see that in the younger generation of the values have to align with them. And so that's been important to me too. But I would also say the paycheck actually comes last from my perspective, right? You do it because you want to earn what you bring to the table and you have confidence that you're going to get to where you want to go. And if you've got a company that respects and values you, then you know that that is going to come. And I've seen that a lot in my generation. Not sure about for Simone, your generation, maybe if the tide is changing a little bit there, but definitely the seat that I'm sitting in, that's kind of what I've seen and felt.
Yeah, I think Gen Z can be a little different on that. I think we are very passionate and we are hard workers, but I think a lot of us crave the stability of a paycheck. I know for myself and a lot of my friends, I don't know if we're necessarily one way or the other, passion or paycheck motivated, but I think we are very stability minded. Whether or not we are motivated by one or the other.
I think most people are in general. I don't know, Chris, Timmel, and Lonnie, would you guys like to weigh in with like workplace values that you grew up seeing modeled and how did that shape? I hear from Alexa and Simone, you know, hard work, dedication is just in there. Did you see that growing up? Is that just innately in who you are?
You know, I'm Jamaican, right? And so as we all know, it's a hardworking group of people. And so first of all, like honestly, thank Simone kind of made a tear come to my eye there a little bit, not gonna lie. But yeah, I mean, I did see from both my parents, you know, they both worked. You know, my dad was you know, worked at the telephone company. You know, I remember vividly, you know, he'd be working in manholes, splicing cables in the middle of the night in winter, and my mom and I would, you know, get in the car and drive over and bring him, you know, food, a plate of food or whatever. I remember my mother, um, you know, working split shifts, right? So she'd work like 9 to 12 and then come home at 12 and be home from 12 to 6. So that when we got home from school, she'd be there. And then she'd work from like, you know, the other night, you know, whatever the other half of the day
Yeah.
is. So yeah, so that's, I mean, that's what I grew up watching and and working. That's all I know. That's how I know how to work.
Great example. Fantastic. Lonnie, you want to
Yeah,
weigh
no,
in?
I just ditto that. So I'm the youngest of four. So my dad was a World War II veteran, and we were stretched out over about 15 years from my oldest brother to me. So you know, my father, you know, worked full time. He ran a grocery store as a general manager of a grocery store. We had a nursery at our house, so the nursery was for trees. So he had a full-time kind of weekend job working on all these trees and selling them, etc. Also was the mayor of the town and was on every school board and board there was. So like, yeah, I think that was just you know, that's what we saw. Wasn't healthy. And you know, some of that unhealthy stuff, I think we got some of that too, Timmel and I.
All right, same vein, but kind of a little bit of a pivot. How important, Lonnie, I'm going to start with you on this because we just heard from you. How important is it that work aligns with your values? We talk values here in 2025. It's always very important.
Well, yeah, I will tell you, as I did a little prep for this, I looked at some of the questions and if it was Simone or you that provided them, Heidi. But from a values perspective, I mean, that was so important with puzzle in the start of this, what we wanted to be, how we wanted to set this up. Chris and I had so many conversations on this, and it's really imperative that, you know, the company takes on the characteristics of the people in charge. And I think what we see, we really like. Is it perfect? No. Do we make mistakes? Sure. I think that's incredibly important that you have some values. I think also when I looked at all the generations, you know, there's so much about what the work provides, what the work provides, and what the work provides. And obviously it's what you provide to work also, but what fulfills you outside of work is really important. So you're never going to get 100% fulfillment from your job. So whether it's your family or your faith or a combination of a variety of things, hobbies, that's where your fulfillment's going to come also. I wouldn't rely on your job, your career to provide you everything that you need to exist. And it puts, I think, far too much pressure on both the company and yourself.
You know, I think so. So
She
yeah.
didn't ask you to talk, Chris.
I
I'm
did.
going to agree. I'm going to agree and then offer a little bit of a different take because you're right here at Puzzle. I mean, how many conversations have we had about building the company? And we're like, okay, we're going to do it the opposite of the other place. Like, so what would they do? We're going to Costanza and do it the opposite way, because that's how those are the values that we espouse. And so we did build the company that way. But I think, I always, whenever we have these conversations, I always think of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? And like those bottom two, when you're, I don't care how old you are, but when you're looking for, the bottom two, safety and security and feeding your family and that sort of thing, is those two bottom levels. I don't think I don't think values matter, right? If you got to feed your family, and if you've got to feed your family, pay your rent, pay your bills, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, like who cares, right? You need a paycheck, right?
Mm.
But once you have those levels established, you have a house, you have some savings, your kids are grown, and on their own, working and whatnot, and your dogs are in the back barking. You've got it kind of locked in a little bit. Then you can really, then really value you have the luxury of values being important, right? Like when I was 26 and just married, um, I just need to get paid, right? We need to pay
That's
the rent.
right.
I just needed to get paid. And, you know, I don't know that I did not selling payroll, which is what I did, back in the day. That was not not anything that I had dreamt my whole life of doing. But I was good at it. It paid the bills. And then now we have the luxury of being able to have a value-based workplace.
For what it's
Simone,
worth, I love working somewhere that really cares about like the values. I think
see?
I mean, as I always say, the last job I had before Puzzle was selling jeans. And, I don't know that there were any values besides like pushing a big sale and signing people up for credit cards. There wasn't team camaraderie. Our leaders didn't want to help us be better at our jobs. They didn't really care if we grew. They were fine to have us be cashiers the whole time. There was not really a push to level us up to assistant managers or stylists or anything like that. So it's really, really nice to work somewhere that you can tell cares.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so many points being brought forward. I agree. I think you can't look at your job or really anything in life to fill all that you're looking for. But I will say, I think it's important that just like relationships, at least my belief is there's not really anything that's neutral in your life. Everything's either adding value or possibly taking away value, right? So I think that's kind of been my North Star when it comes to my job or my career. And anybody that I talk to, it's, the place that you work isn't going to be perfect, but is it adding value to you, especially outside of work? Is it empowering you? Is it making you, if it's more realistic, like Timmel said, right? It's helping you pay your bills. But if it's important to you where, it makes me feel better about who I am and my strengths, it's growing me in a way that I can be a better wife or a better friend. Like that, I think is really the ultimate temperature check for me. I think, is it adding value or is it possibly taking away? And I think that's been my biggest why working here at Puzzle. Like that vision of what Timmel and Lonnie kind of talked about has been so important to me. Just seeing them and how hard they worked growing up and understanding that we all deserve to work at a place that values us inside and outside of the job. And that keeps people going whenever you have opportunities in any workplace.
Lonnie, you mentioned something that perked my ears because I saw a couple faces on this call go the puppy dog tilt when you said that that work should not be, your counselor's office. It should not be your church. It doesn't need to be, your whatever it is. We have seen, I mean, if you read any article, Harvard Business Review, Forbes, anything out there says that people now post-pandemic want their workplace to be much more than just a paycheck, right? the crux of this entire conversation. I don't want to just come here and get paid. I want to love what I'm doing. I want to love who I'm doing it with, et cetera, et cetera. So I'd love to hear Alexa and Simone, that comment that Lonnie made, how does that ring true to you? Does it make you clinch? Do you not? Like, you want work to be more than just
Yeah, I mean, I
that?
think I think the pendulum always swings, right? So maybe back in the day, people worked hard because that's what you did, and you didn't necessarily care as much about the values, or maybe the companies, there wasn't that demand to have values that you stood for. So I think it has swung a little bit, maybe harder the other way, where people put a lot of pressure, I think, as Lonnie said, on themselves and the company to make sure that it exactly aligns in the way that they need. So I think like anything in life, I love what he said, because I think it helps you reflect and go, am I being balanced in what I'm needing as a person working at a company? And if I'm a leader of an organization, am I doing a good job of adding value into the people that I work with so that they can, be empowered positively by the workplace, without putting too much pressure on that side as well. So I think that definitely stuck with me. It's a nice way to have a balance in how we look at things.
Yeah, I think a lot of people in my generation are very much a fan of that split. I think you'll see a lot of people I know, myself included, a lot of us have, for example, hobbies that we could monetize very easily. I bake a lot. I know lots of people who are very crafty. They crochet, they knit, they make things. I know people who sew. And a lot of us don't want that to be our jobs. I mean, like, I think running a bakery would be awesome, but at least for now, I want baking to be my stress relief from my job. I want to have if I have a really busy day at work, I want to hop into the kitchen and make a really great batch of cookies. And that can be my, that's where I'm de-stressing, that's my wellness and that's my therapy. And I think it's awesome to work at a workplace where we're so big on mental health and work-life balance. And I always feel like I can call my manager or I can tap on a coworker and be like, I need help, SOS, and somebody will help me out. They'll direct me to the EAP. They'll remind me that I can use counselor. Like, we have all these awesome resources, but it's also really nice to know, like, hey, that's not everything. I do have a life outside of that. And I think it makes both parts of that more fulfilling. I think I feel more fulfilled at work knowing that I have things other than work, and vice versa.
Okay, let's pivot to like generational dynamics. So Tim, I'm going to start with you, Gen X. What misconceptions do you think other generations have about what motivates our generation? Because I stand here with you in Gen X.
I think that I think that they think that we don't care, that we're kind of robots, right? That because you see, we're feral, right? Like the latchkey kids, right? And the baby boomers that had it kind of the same way. But yeah, like that we don't care, that we are the greed is good generation, right? Like, remember Wall Street, Gordon Gekko? That is kind of what motivates the generation as a whole, kind of painting us sort of as a monolith. And I don't think that's true. I don't think you can paint any of the generations as a monolith. That's when we have these conversations every 6 months, every year or so, that kind of is what comes out. Some people are motivated that way because that's just the way they are, and others aren't. So I think, if I had to pick one misconception about Gen X is that we don't care, don't have values, and that kind of foundationally or fundamentally where that kind of greed is good. The rest of it, the rest of all the Gen X stuff, that the rest of that's all true. The fact that we're feral and we're if the end of the world happens, you want to be around one of us, right? Because we're aging, and we're aging so well.
That's right.
I mean, I do agree. If the world was ending, I would totally run to my local Gen X. I don't know what I would do. I'd be lost. My phone, not to sound like a stereotypical Gen Z, but if I didn't have cell service or Wi-Fi or my phone, I'd be like, now what? Like, there's nothing here. Exactly.
Love it. Love it. What about you, Alexa and or Simone? What misconceptions do you think that maybe even the silent generation, Gen X, has about what motivates your particular age group?
Yeah, I mean, I think for millennial, I'll start with that we all are obsessed with Harry Potter. If I hear that one more time, which I am a Gryffindor, so put that out there.
So you just proved it to be true.
Maybe I did. I don't know, but yeah, that's definitely the funny one that comes up quite a bit. The memes and the Harry Potter. I think on a more serious note, maybe I would say if I could boil it down to one word, it would be commitment. I think that that becomes more present, right? People who maybe move jobs a little bit more than the older generations because they don't have as much patience to kind of stick out things that they're not happy with. And I think that that can be a real thing in certain dynamics. But speaking for myself and a lot of the generation of friends that I grew up in, like we've got some really great committed people that really value their companies, their growth opportunities, and they're very committed to those paths and appreciating what they get from their organizations. So I would say commitment.
Love it.
I think Gen Z is kind of stereotyped as not motivated. I think a lot of people tend to perceive Gen Z as being maybe more flighty. Like Alexa was saying, we have even more of that, like constantly changing jobs. A lot of Gen Z that I know, like a lot of us have had a bunch of different jobs. We've changed jobs a million times. And I think people tend to think that we aren't motivated by anything in specific. I think a lot of people think that it's very hard to connect to Gen Z. And I do agree, sometimes, the language we use can be a little bit obtuse. A lot of it comes from the internet and we're overhearing each other. So it can be sometimes hard to break down those initial barriers. But I think if you get to know us, a lot of us are actually very highly motivated, but maybe not necessarily by the most traditional things. We might not be as motivated by a great healthcare package, for example, but a lot of us love working remote, right? So, it might just be a little bit different what drives us.
I think I'm going to chase the rabbit that you just said about switching jobs often. Like, tell us just from your observations. I know it's not your experience because you have not switched jobs all that much. But what is that? Tell us what that is about inside of your generation. Is it chasing purpose? What is it?
Yeah, I've been really lucky to not have to switch jobs because I feel very stable here. And I think that's the biggest thing that we're chasing. Like we mentioned before, people tend to be motivated by stability in general. Like the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, those bottom two layers are all about stability, safety. And I think that's the biggest thing that a lot of Gen Z is really chasing. I think a lot of us are chasing our purpose. A lot of us don't necessarily know what our purpose is or what our passions are. I think a lot of us are still finding ourselves and trying to figure out who we are in this increasingly digital age where it's so easy to be influenced by social media, to think you fit into one group or you don't fit into another group. It's hard to really know who you are as a young person these days. And I think a lot of us are really chasing that sense of stability. And I think a lot of us are really looking for jobs that not necessarily feel like home or feel like a family, but feel like the right fit. I think that's what a lot of us are really looking for.
That's fair. So fit versus I just need to get paid. So Chris, Lonnie, how long were you guys in your previous roles, or how long were your parents in their previous roles? I would venture to say it was longer than 6 months to a year.
Yeah, no. I was listening to Simone, and there's nothing like a good health plan, Simone, so we can talk later about it. Chris and I talk often about our benefits here, but just to prove your point, I would say this, I look at it and I go, I can't tell you one job. I was at another company for 27 years, and I can tell you every promotion I ever got, there was a period of time where I probably hated what I was doing and wanted to quit. And what I learned from the process that I'd love to share with others at Puzzle when I get the opportunity to is working through that process, develop skill sets, and they're things that you'll end up using in other opportunities and other promotions that you might get, and everything builds on the next experience. So I think while you can go to another job, right, that maybe gets you to that next kind of level that you want, if you're not fully baked, we're still talking about baking, if you're not fully baked at the level you're currently at and you go to the next job, you're just going to have the same issues or be less developed in that job because you didn't allow it time to happen. And I see that a lot. And I'm with Chris. I don't think there's a huge difference in there's subtle differences. There's things that Gen Z and Gen X have that are different than baby boomers and millennials. But in the end, you're kind of evaluated the same way from those companies, and those skill sets are universal. And if you're jumping around different jobs, I can tell you, man, I'm going to scrutinize that resume and I'm really going to question what am I going to bring you that these other 3, 4, 5, 7 companies didn't bring you? And why should I take a chance on you? So I would be balancing that as you say, let's go to the next place.
Yeah, perseverance is absolutely an essential skill. And I think sometimes jumping from job to job can hinder that. Like, I think it's important to know, I think it can be important to know when to quit and when to call it. But at the same time, you also need to know when to stick it through. Sometimes you're going to get a project that you don't want to work on. And that's just life. There's
Yeah.
always more jeans to sell, right?
There's always more jeans to sell, and there's always different leadership that you need to adapt to, right? So it's not just the project or the task. It's like, I think in my career, I probably worked for 12 to 15 different leaders. Some were great and some were terrible, right? Lonnie is probably one of the ones on the latter side, right?
Terrible.
Just kidding, everyone. Yes, of course. No, of course, the best.
I think I stopped you from quitting a few times.
That's
so
right. You certainly did. Thank goodness. Right. Probably because of leadership. Right. But you're absolutely right in that you call it baked. I call it like a level of resilience. I just feel like nothing is wasted inside of our careers. If you're working for somebody that's not ideal or doesn't look or treat you in a certain way, no time is wasted. You're either developing a level of, persistence, like you said, or perseverance, Simone, or agility if somebody's not communicative and they don't tell you how to go about getting something done, and that stunts your growth and you don't really know what you're supposed to do to move forward. That teaches you to advocate for yourself and to ask better questions, and I need more clarity and all of that. So Lonnie, to your point, if you don't allow yourself to sit in the discomfort, right? You miss that opportunity. Sitting in the discomfort develops professional maturity.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Well
mean,
said.
I've heard from a wise leader too that a lot of the problems that present itself inside the workplace are probably the same problems you have outside of the workplace. So that really helped shift my mentality of maybe my blind spots or the things that cause me friction. I need to look at it more of like, okay, what is this telling me about myself? What accountability can I take to grow through this that can help me be a better person throughout my whole experience? And so that would be something I would encourage my generation. Don't look at it so much of here's who I am outside of work, here's who I am in work. It's we're all humans that are coming with our strengths and opportunities to the table, and probably what you love and what you need to work on is probably about the same of what you bring home. So
Yeah, if there's any Gen Zs watching this, I highly encourage you to look at all of those past bad job experiences, all of those places you quit, and don't think of them as just bad experiences. Think of them as learning experiences. Like, if you're applying for another job and you just had a bunch of jobs and Lonnie is looking at your resume and he's questioning you, like, why did you leave all these jobs? Have a good reason. Think about what you learned from that situation, because that's going to be really important. The fact that you learn something is absolutely essential. You're learning something from every situation you go through, even in the workplace. So like, don't let that go to waste. If you're going to change jobs, write a list, right? Like, what did I learn here? That's
Yeah, I mean, because your resume is what you need to be able to defend.
That's right.
yeah,
Right?
exactly.
I mean, honestly, and when you ask those questions, and Chris and I were just interviewing some people recently. If you can't give us a good reason why you went from a pretty good job to another pretty good job, or a pretty good job to one we're kind of questioning, if you don't have an answer for that, how do I know you're not going to make that same dumb decision coming over to puzzle?
Yeah.
And I'm going to invest this time and energy into you, right? If you think about it, 1 year is pretty much getting somebody to be fully developed at a workplace, right? And then that next year is start delivering back to us. and you're going, I'm interviewing other places because I don't feel fulfilled.
Hmm.
And that was a costly mistake on the business's part. That's why jumping is so critical, jumping jobs or not having sense of where you're going is a little scary for us in puzzle, because what's going to tell us you're going to do anything different than you've been doing?
Yeah.
Yeah, jump carefully. You don't want to land on a lily pad that doesn't have the little thing under it, and then you just sink.
Wow.
My little frog metaphor.
Wise words from Simone.
Thank you, thank you.
Big Timmel, you look like you're gonna weigh in.
No. I was kind of really, sort of taking it all in. I'm thinking through, some of the interviews, and I ask the same exact interview questions every single time I interview someone, right? Pick a point, you're right. These are them, right? So if you're going to interview with me, this is what you're going to hear. Pick a point in your resume and walk me from that place to now. And you started job one. Okay. Who was your supervisor? What was her name? What did she do really, really well? What did she not do really, really well? What would she say you did really, really well? What would say you didn't do really, really well or could improve on? Okay, great. Do you agree with that? Tell me why. How do you feel that's impacted you? Okay, why did you leave that job and go to the next one? All right, great. Let's talk about that job. And that's literally it. That's my series of interview questions that I go through. And they tell me a bunch of different things: how you like to work, what you value in leadership, and and what they do really, really well, and what your leaders didn't do really, really well. So it tells me what you value in leadership, kind of tells me what your values are, and it gives me your thought process. Are you introspective? Are you accountable? So I ask those questions every single time. Honestly, the more jobs you have, the more time it's going to take. So if I see somebody with like 7 jobs, I'm like, oh, this is going to take 2 hours. I can't do it. So
Not in our short attention span
What?
culture, right? What? Exactly. Yeah, we have an hour for this. I'm already like, can we wrap this thing up? Let's go. Chris, what are you hoping to achieve when you're asking those kind of questions to anybody? I mean, you interview every generation. So what are you hoping to see? I know you mentioned adaptability, values, but are there certain things that you're looking for more often than not? Because you're a big, attitude
I
dude.
look for 4 things. Simone, would you like to tell people tell the people what they are?
Oh God, let's see if I can nail this. Attitude,
There's the Jeopardy music.
Accountability, and ambition.
Atta girl.
I don't think that's the right order, but
No, it's ambition, attitude, activity, and accountability. Those are the 4 things that I look for in everyone. Quickly to define, because I may define these things a little bit differently than Webster. So ambition to me is when you will have a goal, right? And even though knowing how hard it's going to be, right? And you still are going to have that goal. Here's a perfect example. Lonnie's going to love this one. For example, I don't want to get better at golf. I don't. I would love to break 190 all the time. I would love to. But you know what? I don't want to practice, right? I don't want to practice. I want to go to the golf course. I want to have my little drinky drink. I want to hang out with my buddies and slap the ball around. If I hit 100, great. If I hit 95, miracle of miracles, right? If I find a couple of golf balls, even better, right? But so that is not an ambition of mine. Well, maybe something else, staying in shape, losing weight. Okay, that is an ambition of mine. I know it's hard. I know I can't eat what I want. I can't drink what I want. I have to work out. I have to exercise every single freaking day. I have to sleep right. So I know that I have to do those things, and I do those things. So to stay in shape, that's like a real goal. I know how hard it is and how hard it's going to continue to be. So that's an ambition of mine. So I look for folks' ambition, attitude, right? Life is going to put obstacles in your way, right? How you approach those obstacles, right? Your attitude, will determine how you get over, around, and through them, right? So, you can have the attitude of, why did this happen to me? Or you can have the attitude, I'm going to take my ball and go home. Or you can have the attitude of, I'm grateful that this happened to me, because now it's going to give me the opportunity to do what it is that I have to do to get to where I want to be. Right. ambition, attitude. Activity then is when life drops that obstacle in your way and you have the right attitude. Activity is doing the things necessary to get over, around, or through that obstacle. I want to lose that last 5 pounds. I'm not going to drink every day this week like I always do, right? And I'm going to walk in the morning and work out in the afternoon and go for a walk after dinner, right? I'm going to do the things that I got to do to get over, around, and through that obstacle. And the last thing is accountability. And Lex, you touched on this before, and some of you did as well, right? Like if it rains, it's my fault. If I ate the cookie or ate the cupcake, it's on me. Nobody shoved it in my face, right? So accountability is they all kind of circle. So it doesn't really matter the order of the A's, but those four things sort of circle. Accountability is I did it because I did it. I didn't do it because I didn't do it. If I succeeded or failed, it's on me. So those are the four things that I look for in those interviews and when I interview people.
So that lends itself right to more purpose than just doing it because, or, purpose and passion versus just a paycheck, because people are intrinsically motivated by something greater. Are they seeking to learn something? Is there a level of self-awareness? And then if they're aware, can they actually manage themselves to either just sit in the discomfort, right? And think, what can I learn here? Or decide, like Lonnie, to your point, I'm out, I'm done. Like I haven't even let this, I'm done with this leader. I don't like the way that they lead me. Like I'm moving forward.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Alexa.
that was great. I mean, I think accountability has always been my biggest one. I think it's kind of like where the puck stops. If somebody's not able to be accountable with themselves, there's not much you can influence there. And so that's been a great value that was taught to me by my family, by my faith, by my work ethic. And now it's like the biggest one that I start with, whether it's an interview or whether it's somebody I work with or a new team member or a new team I'm going to be taking over. It's just making sure you've got people that can be reflective to know here's the good I bring to the table. Maybe here's the one thing I need to work on, and being collaborative to get there. But if you don't have that accountability, it's going to be hard to get that activity and all those other pieces. But those were great ones to bring forward, Timo.
Lonnie, I see you shaking your head.
No, just, you look at it, you just say, the resume, you want to make a bad hire off a resume. Oh, look, they have all these credentials and so let's say it's a great resume and they've been stable or whatever. Or you hire them because they have multiple certifications and whatever, job role that we have. And you're not interviewing the fact that they don't have some of those attributes that we talk about all the time. And fit is critical. So what you're saying basically by going through all these things, regardless of what your generation is how well are you going to be able to define your role and fit into this organization? And that's really critical. The resume just gets you in the door for the interview. The individuals that just interview off from a resume, I think can have some really bad hires, some disaster hires, if you will. Some people with really good resumes that really suck for the organization, and the organization can suck for them.
Lonnie, when you talk about fit, we've heard you talk about that a lot. Like it's the right person on the right seat of the bus, right? Is this the right fit for you culturally? Is this the right fit for you organizationally? Do you want to work remote? Do you want to work hybrid? But when you're interviewing any generation for fit, what is it that you're looking at? Any of you guys, because I know all four of you guys interview people.
I think it is those other things that are on the resume. So you being able to say, well, I was here from this period of time to this period of time, and I got this certification and I did this and this. I mean, that's all well and good, but how well are you working with others? This job requires you to be able to work with others. How committed are you to the company, right? The company's going to be committed to you. How committed are you going to be to the company? And we'll honor your things that you need also. I mean, that comes with every position. But I think just those other measurements for fit, that's make or break. And I'll tell you, we were fascinated with resumes when we started Puzzle, in particular on the service side for the HR teams, we hired people with really good resumes that, we turned loose on a client base that grew quickly in an organization that changed rapidly. And some of those people didn't like all the change that we provided. And man, it was disastrous. There was some really good people that just said, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
Because it's a unique job, it's a unique company. And you see it in the nonprofit, you see it in fast-growing companies, you see it in kind of stable analytic companies. So anyways, that's that fit dynamic.
I would love to get Simone's, sorry, I'm popping in, but that sat with me, and I'd love to get Simone's perspective. But I think there's a tide shifting too of, I think, at least when I was growing up, there was huge importance on going to college, and you have to have a degree and you have to have experience, to really prove yourself, to get yourself in the door. And I think there's this tide that's kind of shifting of, is it really important that somebody has all of that book knowledge, or do you really just need somebody that is hungry for the challenge, that is just going to take this and move it to the next level? I've actually like seen and felt that in like the recruiting process. I think there's more to be said with, as Lonnie said, like digging into the layers. It's great. I think, there's nothing wrong with it, but going a layer deeper to ask more questions when it comes to certifications and stuff. So Simone, I don't know if you felt that with like your generation, but I'm even hearing that with younger people saying, is it really important for me to invest all this time in a certification, or should I really just be going out there and getting myself the exposure and experience I need?
Oh yeah, I think there's a lot of people who are not so sold on college anymore. I mean, not to bring everything back to my baking hobby, but I really wanted to go to pastry school recently and I was looking into it. It's like $15,000. Awesome if you want to be a career baker or whatever, but that's not necessarily my goal. Instead, I think it would be probably more helpful for me to go stage at a bakery, right? Give them some free work while they teach me how to laminate a croissant. And I think that's the case for a lot of people in my generation. A lot of us are even those of us who did go to college are not so sold on it. I was a psych major, and clearly I am not a therapist right now. I I use the skills that I learned from college writing wise, but other than that, yeah, I think there's a really big, and generally I think a very awesome push towards skills-based hiring as opposed to, certificate or degree-based hiring. And I think with more and more younger generations entering the workforce, I think that's going to continue for sure. And I think it does tie into the passion and paycheck thing. I think a lot of us are, we're all motivated by different things, but if you as a leader know, I have this employee who's very passionate and I have this other employee who's very paycheck driven, maybe you give the passionate employee the project that might, involve them staying a little bit later. And maybe you give the paycheck employee the project that like might hurt the passion driven employee's feelings, right? Like say you have a project that involves like client feedback, your passion employee might be really down to stay late, but it might hurt them to hear that the client like doesn't love what they're working on. That might be a place where it's better to know like my paycheck driven employee fits really well on these type of projects and my passion driven employee fits really well on other ones.
Interesting.
Although I'm not a leader,
Fascinating.
so I don't know if that would work, but
Well, I think you're tapping into, I love this topic because I think it all boils down to understanding the people you work with. We're all not like a one size fits all. And part of us talking about like the generations, I think, is just because it tells you a little bit of probably how they got to where they are, right? The experience they had from a culture perspective or from a society perspective. So I love what you're saying, Simone, and I've seen a lot of value in that, especially in like my experience at this company of investing in Omnia, right? Things that can help me assess myself to know what I bring to the table versus where I can improve. And then as you step into leadership, knowing the people you work with and maybe what motivates one person is going to look and feel a little different. So how can you tap into that to help people get to, the best level that they're trying to get to? So I don't know, like that would be interesting, Chris and Lonnie. Like, did you guys really have any of that when you were, growing in your career? I don't know if there was a lot of investment in trying to understand who you are and how to unlock people in that kind of unique way.
For Lonnie and I, so Lonnie as well, a psych major. So we spent a lot of time and money. We just talked about this yesterday. all of the testing and assessments that we would put all our people through. Every quarter we would bring like bring all our resumes together, and we'd get in a room and we'd analyze their disc profile, their MBTI, their SPQ Gold. We'd go through their resume. These are the people that left, and then the people that were successful. And we go through all of that so we could learn about that person. I will say that's something that Lonnie absolutely brought to the table. It was unique, certainly unique in our business units. I did not see that in any of the other business units that we worked with over there. We were the same company for, I was 24 years, 27 years, as you guys all know. But so we did spend a lot of time on that stuff.
I think what was derived by that, the derivative of that, was we had a really stable workforce. We had people that were dying to come work in our organizations. People want to be developed. Like, there's nothing worse than feeling like you're kind of stuck someplace. And I would tell you, you want to find out what people are made out of, develop them, invest in them. I think that's universal. I would probably also say, we're talking about the younger generations than Simone. I don't know what the next generation is that's coming, or whatever that's going to be in the workforce. But I'm not saying they're tough, but when you not tough, but when you look at baby boomers and you look at the Gen X, and it all says pretty much work ethic and tough and independent and all these things. And then as you go down, it says less of that, right? Whether you believe it or not, right? These are some tendencies. But with the introduction of AI, with the introduction of workforces around the world now, when you look at some of the changes that are coming, I mean, we could be revisiting some of the old stuff that used to happen before the baby boomers. So that next generation might need to get really tough, because that work environment that they're coming into is going to be a lot different than the ones that maybe all of us had to come into, and is going to continue to change. And if you're sitting there going, I'm a victim, or you're sitting there going, somebody's got to help me, it might be a little rough for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
I don't
more
know
and more we're gonna need people to be self-starters, self-driven, willing to learn. And I think, I don't know, I know a lot of people don't think that that's the case for Gen Z, and I can't speak for the generation below me, but I do think that there are a lot of us who are super motivated, and we are self-driven, we are those self-starters. Sometimes we just gotta lock in, gotta tap into that potential. And hopefully the next generation will be able to do that as well.
I hear a lot of psychology in what you guys were talking about, because you're talking about reframing, right? Like a bad experience, or a, tumultuous experience with a leadership, or a leader you worked with, or a peer that you were, not seeing eye to eye with, that, didn't make your work environment that, happy and wonderful. You have to choose to reframe. Like, we have to focus on what we can control, and then what we can influence, and what we can't control. And I always picture that, like, how can I actually move myself forward so I'm not sitting stuck inside of this terrible mindset? And as I'm seeing and listening to the people around me that I'm developing, how can I help them do the same thing in one particular way? So that's universal, and that's plays right in line with your degree, Simone. You brought it right into practice.
Yeah, it was good for something. Thanks.
Lonnie too.
And Alexa.
And Alexa. Oh my gosh, you study psychology too? Timma, what did you study?
Marketing management.
Look at you now.
That did you a lot of good. You needed to go back and get your psych degree and give us a call.
With an account, by the way, accounting minor.
Oh my gosh. Oh, stars.
Well, listen, Heidi, you saying the adaptability, I just have to plug this really quick. I think that's so important too, like knowing where we come from, but being able to flex to, work with the different generations or personalities or motives or whatever. So I want to give a good shout out to Chris, because despite him being a Gen X person, he was like one of the first people coming out of COVID to be like, we got to start doing HR TikToks. I was just like, I was so proud. I'm like, okay, we're going to tap into the younger generation, do some TikToks. And it's good. It's good for the business and good for the people to see how you can be nimble. It was good.
Heidi, so let's put you on let's put you on the table. So, you switched careers several times since I've known you.
Yep.
You were on the service side. You were a fantastic salesperson, and now you're on in the learning development. Not really, maybe a little service side, but not much. So, talk to me about your journey and what you went through to make those types of moves. Because I've stayed kind of well. I mean, I'm running people, but I've gone from the sales side to running an organization with Timmel. What changed for you?
Um, yeah, I mean, you make a really good point. I'm just motivated internally. I've always just kind of tagged myself as somebody who's motivated to be my best version of myself versus compete with everybody else on the team. And so, I started in service kind of fresh out of college and managed a large book of accounts and always just love to delight clients, quite honestly, and figure out ways to do that. And then, candidly speaking, I saw all these goofball salespeople next to me, and I'm like, they don't seem like they're doing anything all that different than I'm doing. I actually think I'm working harder than they are, and they're getting paid triple the amount that I am. This doesn't work for me. So I need to be in sales. And then I got into sales and realized it was very difficult. And my dumb quota every single year that I would do a great job, you guys would reward me by increasing my quota 30%, which is fun for the anxiety,
It's called
right?
giving you a raise.
It's called giving me anxiety. Stop doing that. And that's when I would go to Lonnie and say, I can't do this anymore. And he would talk me off the ledge and use a psychology degree. I think, and where I'm at now, I think this is in terms of developing people. I've always developed people my entire career. This is always the role that I've wanted to be in. I've always wanted to, you know, help people. That's just kind of who I am. Connect with people, move them forward, whatever that looks like. But I think the key to my success has always been surrounding myself with people that care greatly about me, that are way smarter than I am, that I'm not intimidated by, that I can really lean into, and that I listen to, right? So there's been many times, Lonnie, when you challenged, my desire to quit and or to leave a particular role, and you were like, okay, she's not fully she hasn't sat in that discomfort for a long time. She needs to really figure out why she wants to make a move. It doesn't have to be black or white. I know that you've said that to me many times. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. You don't have to quit this role or leave the organization. Maybe it's just pivot. It's not working for you right now. And you get that by being around people that care about you, that have seen you perform and know what you're capable of. And quite honestly, I got that inside of an organization that I was with 10 plus years. So, and it's no coincidence that when you guys started the organization, you tapped me on the shoulder and were like, hey, you wanna come help us start this thing? I'm like, what would you like me to do? And your response was, we have no idea. We don't even know what we're going to be doing, but just come. Okay. Just come. And so that's what I did. Right. But that's what you get when you're with an organization and with people for longer than just a few months, right? There's a richness there. You trust, there's a level of trust in people's character. You've seen them in their jobs. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
I think when we're listening to you and listening to all the comments, and they've been wonderful. I think what we're saying at the end of the day, right, regardless of it being an employee, a friend, a family member, communication is critical. So there's tendencies with each generation, and they're all built a little bit differently, and they're all, you know, indoctrinated and developed differently. But at the end of the day, I think communication, understanding their needs, wants, and desires, and what makes them tick is really important. So your example, Heidi, of you is, and it was a pretty simple one. You were a pretty successful sales rep that somebody put a quota of being in the upper 1%, and you basically flipped out, going, I'm not willing to sacrifice my family, to do that. I'm going to leave. And all we did was reduce your quota down to like conference level. And by the way, you still produce the same amount, but without the pressure. So what we're talking about really today, it is encompassed in really communication. So regardless of how old they are and what generation they're from and what the dynamics are there, everybody's built differently. Communicating with them, understanding what makes them go. That to me is probably the most important lesson I could learn from going through this symposium, this exercise with you guys.
That's awesome, Lonnie. And that leads into exactly what I was going to say as to close this thing out. If we could each give the audience at home kind of one thing that we hope they get from our little talk today, what would you want it to be? Lonnie, I assume that was yours?
Yeah, let's stick with communication for me, understanding the person at a deeper level.
Awesome. Awesome. I'll go next so that to give everybody else a chance to think. I think that if you take anything away from this conversation, the one thing I want you to know is that it's the generations don't actually act in a monolith, right? And so that's 1A. So all 25-year-olds are not built the same. All 65-year-olds are not built the same. People have different motivations, and there are different places in their life. And as a leader, you should have enough EQ to know where they are so that you can meet them where they are, so that you can have those communications with them. So I think that's really important. And there's another one, I know we only touched on AI, but for those of you who are out there who are interviewing, right? If you can avoid using AI screeners on resumes, I think that'd be really, really helpful to you and to everyone else, because there are people my age, Lonnie's age, Alexa's age, Heidi's age, Simone's age that are out there that are trying to get jobs, and the AI is filtering them out, and so take the AI out of screening, take the artificial intelligence out of screening resumes, and put the actual intelligence out of screening resumes. You're missing some folks, and you're frustrating some job seekers. I know that's completely off topic for this conversation, but I just wanted some of the HR folks to hear from me that that's one of the things that we're seeing in data, and it is absolutely impacting all of the generations. So that'd be my thing to give back.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we could spin off on a whole different topic, just how technology is influencing the workplace, right? And how it might be eliminating, enhancing, or hurting the human experience. So that's going to be huge from an HR perspective. I think what resonated with me that I would say is just lean in and be authentic. I think whether you're running an organization, you're a leader, or you're somebody that's trying to pave the way, like use where people come from, if they're a boomer or whatnot, as a resource to start a conversation and get to know somebody. But don't let it make you afraid, right? Oh, if they're this generation, I'm not gonna be able to understand them because they send GIFs and I don't know how to send a GIF, right? Or is it GIF? I don't know. But I think not being afraid and using it as a resource to authentically lean in and get to know your people and get to know yourself is most important. Don't box people in, but don't be afraid of it. Use it and get to know your people. So
Yeah, I think my thing would be get to know yourself as well. Know what motivates you, know what drives you, know what you like working on, what you don't like working on, what you're willing to sacrifice, what you're not willing to sacrifice. And if you're a Gen Z specifically, stop underestimating yourself. It doesn't do you any favors. You belong here just as much as the rest of us do. You kind of make the rest of our generation look bad when you think that you're terrible at things, because we're also smart. We are also capable. We can be accountable, and we can have great attitudes and great activity and so much ambition. But when you underestimate yourself, you undermine all of that.
If they can make it.
Heidi, close us out.
I mean, in terms of like anything that you could grasp a hold of, it's always, I feel like at this stage of my career, I'm learning to sit very comfortably in discomfort, because at the end of the day, I want to be professionally mature. And I just realize that not a lot ruffles my feathers now. I find myself running towards feedback, right? I want to know what I'm doing well, what I'm not doing well. And I can tell you, even 4 years ago, I would run the heck away from it. I didn't want to know. It was so delicate. I'm just a people pleaser by nature, but no matter what generation you're in, seek feedback from your clients, read what they're telling you. They're going to tell you what they want. Look for patterns. Doesn't matter what generation you're in. That will bring value and purpose to the work that you do. So that's how I would end.
That's awesome. Well, I want to thank the panel, Lonnie, Alexa, Heidi, Simone. This has been, I don't know if you all know this, but this is, we're a couple father and daughter duos here. I don't know if anybody noticed that. So this was a lot of fun for me. We've not had these kind of conversations, the four of us together. So there's a lot of fun for me. I hope for the folks on the panel as well. And I hope for you viewing at home. I hope you got something out of this. We want to thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us, and certainly look forward to seeing you in the next symposium. Again, be sure to follow us on in LinkedIn, YouTube, all our socials, all the other stuff's that's out there. And we'll see you again real soon. Thanks a bunch, everyone. Bye now.
See you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you all.